In this episode, we talk about the Jharkhand government's plan to set up a tiger safari in the Barwadih Western Forest Range. We also talk about TMC MP Mahua Moitra tying the knot with Supreme Court lawyer and former BJD MP Pinaki Misra. But first, we discuss how a moment of celebration for the Royal Challengers Bengaluru quickly turned tragic. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda, and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. After the Royal Challengers Bengaluru won the IPL for the first time in 18 years, fans across the country were all set to celebrate. In fact, on Tuesday night itself, thousands took to the streets of Bengaluru to mark the occasion. But those celebrations came to a sudden halt the next day when a deadly stampede near the city's Chinnaswamy stadium left 11 people dead and at least 50 injured. The crowd had gathered after RCB announced a victory parade, even though the local traffic police later said that no such parade had been scheduled. It turns out over 2 lakh people had turned up hoping to catch a glimpse of the team, with some believing that free passes were being given out to enter the stadium. Yesterday, during a press conference, Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah acknowledged the scale of the failure, saying that the entire city's police force was deployed but couldn't contain the crowd.
There are small gates. The people entered through the gates.
They have broken the gates.
They have broken the gates also. So stampede has taken place. Nobody has expected so much of crowd will come because the capacity of the stadium is only 35,000 people. Only 35,000 seats are there. But 2 to 3 lakh people have come to participate in the celebration. So that is why, see, ಮೇಲ್ನೋಟಕ್ಕೆ ಹಂಗನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಪ್ರೇಮ ಪೇಶಿ, it looks like that. It doesn't mean that ನಾನು ಖಚಿತವಾಗಿ ಏನು ನಡೆದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಏನು ಹೇಳಿಲ್ಲ. That is why I ordered magisterial inquiry and I given 15 days time.
To unpack the confusion and the apparent lack of planning that led to this tragedy, we are joined by the Indian Express's Sanath Prasad. Sanath, we understand that initially the RCB had announced a victory parade, but this was later cancelled. Tell us, why was this parade cancelled?
So, it was a very big moment for Bangalore. It's like 18 years and, RCB finally lifted the IPL trophy. So it's a very emotional and very emphatic even for Bangalore and for Bangaloreans. So RCB actually announced that, they're going to have a victory parade in Bangalore. And following which, I think on the early morning of June 4th is when they tweet. At around 7 a.m. they tweet saying that, they're going to have a victory parade. So the actual plan was to have a victory parade from Vidhan Sauda to Chinnaswamy Stadium, which is roughly about 2 kilometers. So what happened later was, what we have learnt is RCB management had written to the Bangalore Police Commissioner seeking permission for hosting this victory parade. But at around 12, the cops actually denied permission. They say there's no such victory parade that's going to take place. But even after that, RCB went ahead and said there is going to be a victory parade. This is a second tweet that came in at around 3:15 p.m. So the primary reason why victory parade was cancelled by the cops is because of lack of time for preparations and also, other traffic related issues. In fact, they had such a short window time to prepare for anything at all. So both law and order and the traffic, because it was done at such short notice that they couldn't move, segregate people and vehicles. So they had literally no time.
Right. And the RCB management had said that the victory parade would be held in an open bus from the Vidhan Sauda to the stadium. So tell us what actually happened that day after the team arrived in the city.
Yes. In fact, first of all, the Vidhan Sauda event was not planned There was no plan in place on 3rd for the felicitation and the program at Vidhan Sauda. So it was all at 11:30 is when the cops are informed that there's going to be an event. So you got to make all the necessary arrangements. And the team is landing at 2:30 and cops are informed at 11:30. So it's just like a 3-hour window to actually to prepare and bring, to have necessary measures and on ground. So that was the most challenging part. So once the team landed at 2:30 at HAL, they were first taken to Taj, one of the private hotels in Central Business District. Post which, they were at around 3:34 is when they reached Vidhan Sauda. So at Vidhan Sauda, on the grand steps of Vidhan Sauda, the government had planned for a felicitation ceremony where they would honor all the RCB players, basically the champions of IPL 2025. So this was the plan. And RCB, meanwhile, in their tweet at around 3 p.m. had announced that they would be having a program between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. at the Chinnaswamy Stadium. Also saying that there would be a victory parade, which the cops clearly denied. But however, the traffic police department still said that even if there was a victory parade that was going to happen, they were still ready for it. But ultimately, that didn't happen.
Yeah, and you write that while the felicitations were taking place at the Vidhan Sauda at around 4:30, that's when the problem started happening at the stadium. Tell us what happened next.
So let's understand, Chinnaswamy Stadium has a capacity of only 35,000 people. But what the people that gathered outside Chinnaswamy yesterday evening was 2.5 lakh. So this is like multifold crowd and all are waiting to get in. So what happens is RCB makes an announcement saying that this is a free event and you can avail free passes on this website. And meanwhile, KSCA, that's the Karnataka State Cricket Association, says this is on first come, first serve basis. And third thing is lack of preparations. So all three actually led to a very tragic situation at around 4 p.m. So by 4 p.m., things started going out of control. There was massive crowd and fans gathered throughout around the stadium. And what we have to remember is, Chinnaswamy Stadium has around 21 gates. So initial investigation so far says that, there was only 3 gates that were opened. So imagine 2.5 lakh people just managing to enter through 3 gates. So that's a big mess. So these gates are very narrow and you have lakhs of people trying to enter through that narrow space. So what happened there was even the non-pass holders tried to storm into the stadium. So when both the non-pass holders and the pass holders tried to just storm into the stadium, that's when hell broke loose. People started falling on each other. People started, pushing and shoving each other. And that ultimately led to the stampede and the death of 11 people, including 14-year-old kid. So this is what largely happened. And the incident happened inside the compound of Chinnaswamy Stadium. And none of this actually took place on the road or, anywhere. It's inside the premises of Chinnaswamy Stadium. And by this time, this is around, say, 4:45 when it was intense. So this is the time when we had Virat Kohli and his team receiving getting felicitated at the Vidhan Sauda Grand Steps. So the government was busy in this felicitation ceremony, while people here at Chinnaswamy were, it was a stampede situation at Chinnaswamy. So this is what happened.
And Sanath, when this happened, what efforts were made to contain the situation, and were the injured immediately taken to the hospital?
Just when, these distress calls were going out, so ambulances were going back and forth on Kaban Road and MG Road, taking patients to, taking the victims to hospital. And then you had even the metro services being suspended at MG Road, Kaban Park and Vidhan Sauda around 4:45 and 5 p.m. Because of a massive crowd actually who have gathered at these metro stations. So metro services were suspended and traffic was completely diverted onto other roads. Then you had the medical camps which was already there, so they were assisting people who were in need. And you had cops, and we saw visuals of cops actually taking all these people into ambulances and helping them, assisting in the entire relief management, traffic cops and even the law and order cops. So they started, evacuating and started helping out people who are suffering and started taking them to hospitals, shifting them in ambulances and taking them to hospitals. And the major part was, there were only 3 to 4 ambulances. The emergency services lacked. There were just 3 to 4 ambulances to take care of, say, 2.5 lakh crowd. So lack of emergency services also exacerbated the situation. And also the victims, the deceased, they were taken to the Bowring Hospital, which is in Shivaji Nagar, and some were taken to the Vaidehi Hospital on Vittal Malya Road. And those with head injuries were shifted to Nimans.
And Sanath, like you mentioned, the lack of planning and the time crunch were the major reasons behind what happened. Could you expand on that a bit and tell us what the people you spoke to had to say about it?
So it's not the first time that Bangalore is seeing such a big, an event where there's so much crowd. You had, Prime Minister's rally during the Lok Sabha elections where there were around 12 lakh people who gathered along 20-kilometer stretch during a roadshow from, South Bangalore to North Bangalore. And the time window given there was around 6 days. And you had the New Year event, 2025 New Year event. So that where people, I think in and around Church Street, MG Road, there were easily over 5 lakh people who gathered and everything went smooth. So problem is here in a 3-hour window and the cops are asked to prepare, you don't know what's waiting in store for you. You don't know who's going to come where, and they didn't have time to segregate people and vehicles. They didn't have any time for barricading the stretch. They didn't have any time to have, sufficient emergency services. Then you had to do sector-wise segregation where you had to, usually what happens when there are big events, you have sector-wise segregation and each sector is managed by a certain level of police officer. Then you have constables at every 1.5 kilometer stretch. So these are usually, the existing plan for crowd management, but none of this were either present or was lacking and ultimately leading to such a tragic turn of events.
And how has the state government reacted to this tragedy?
I mean, as expected, it turned into a blame game. And while the state government is yesterday, the chief minister visited the victims and the deceased families. That was the first thing he did after he heard about this incident, and you had the government announcing compensation. And today we had RCB and KSC also announcing a compensation of 5 lakh each as a relief to the deceased families. And also RCB has set up this RCB Cares Fund to help the injured. So now the government has also ordered a magistrate inquiry into this incident. And the inquiry officer has now, put out a public notice calling out all the eyewitnesses, people and other stakeholders, including, KSCA and others, to come before the commission and submit, whatever they know, basically detailing the incidents and everything. So on the other hand, you have the opposition BJP who are slamming the government for this complete callous management. So the primary questions that are being asked is, who are the organizers of these events? Why was it organized? And was there any permission that was granted? Did RCB actually get any permission to host this victory parade, to organize this victory parade and the event at KSCA? Whether permission was granted or was it flouted? So these are some of the questions, and also why the events took place in both the Vidhan Saudha and the Chinnaswamy Stadium. What is the logic behind conducting events in two places? This is one of the questions that the BJP government is asking. And also another fundamental question is, what is the obligation of the state government to organize a felicitation ceremony for a team that has no state representatives? Basically, RCB is a team where you have no Karnataka place except maybe Mayank Agarwal. So these are the fundamental questions.
Right. And Sanath, has an investigation started on this case yet? And has the BCCI made any comments on everything that has happened?
So far, and now since the Karnataka High Court has taken a suo motu cognizance of this incident, in fact, they have also asked the government to submit a status report by Tuesday, on the lines of detailing whether this could have been prevented what were the measures that was in place that to control and to, the crowd management measures that was there. So they will be filing a status report with the High Court on Monday. And in fact, yesterday, the IPL chairman had said that, they have no information about the victory event at Chinnaswamy Stadium. And even they were clueless about who's organizing it and what was exactly the details of the event. So they say that they had no role to play in this event because largely this was the RCB and the KSCA in collaboration with KSCA. So they were the ultimate organizers of this event. So that's been the response of the IPL chairman yesterday.
And now, shifting focus from the tragedy in Bengaluru, let's turn to Jharkhand, where the state government is currently planning to set up a tiger safari. This proposed safari will be located on the fringes of the Barwadih Western Forest Range, which is the part of the Palamau Tiger Reserve. This area is not only home to a significant tiger population, but also to several tribal communities who have lived there for generations. And while the Forest Department says the safari will help raise awareness about wildlife conservation, the communities living there aren't entirely on board with the plan. To understand what's being planned for the safari and what concerns are being raised by the communities living in the area, we are joined by the Indian Express's Shubham Tigga, who reports on the state for the paper. Shubham, can you first explain the concept of a tiger safari? What does it exactly mean in the context of a tiger reserve?
So a tiger safari is quite different from what we usually think as a wild safari, like a national park or wildlife sanctuary. These are in the protected areas, right? So in a typical wild sanctuary, if we say that in places like, if we take examples like Kanha National Park or Jim Corbett, so these are the places which are wild safari. These are not exactly tiger safari. Okay, so wild safari, it's like open area, protected area where people can visit and they may or they may not see the animals. Tigers. But in tiger safari, animals are housed in large naturalistic enclosures within forested zones. So sightings are guaranteed here. It's a kind of hybrid space. Some part is zoo and some part is forest, and visitors will come and they will secure enclosures in caged vehicles, and they will get the opportunity to observe animals like tigers in a near wild setting. So it's a model that aims to balance tourism with conservation. So it will give people an immersive experience without disrupting core wild habitats.
And could you explain why they came up with the idea of a tiger safari in the first place, instead of simply relying on the tiger reserves? And also, does the National Tiger Conservation Authority have any specific guidelines for them?
So yes, the NTCA, which we are talking about, National Tiger Conservation Authority, so it first acknowledged the idea of tiger safaris back in 2012. The idea was to reduce tourist pressure from core zones of tiger reserves by diverting some of them to the remaining part of the forest area. So the remaining part is also which are not coming under the core and buffer areas or any protected areas. So the NTCA came up with this idea in 2012. Then in 2016, they refined the guidelines further, stating clearly that only rescued, orphaned or conflict-prone tigers could be housed in these safaris. Which are these? Rescued, orphaned or conflict-prone. Okay. So here zoo-bred tigers were not allowed initially, but later in 2019, that also changed and they included Central Zoo Authority to giving them responsibility for approving even zoo-bred animals. So in 2019, it changed. From 2012 to 2019, the procedures were like this. But recently, we see that judiciary is also involved in this. Last year, March 2024, Supreme Court stepped in. And they said tiger safaris can't be in the core or buffer areas. And they have to be set up in the fringe areas of forest department. These areas are the beyond protected areas. So there is a layered regulatory system now. NTCA, then CZA, and now the judiciary.
Now coming to Jharkhand, what all is in the pipeline right now? What kind of efforts are being made to set up this tiger safari?
So right now, Jharkhand's first tiger safari is still in the initial stage. It's in an ideation stage, but discussions have begun. So the proposed site is on the fringe of Palamau Tiger Reserve, which is in the Latehar district, and the forest range name is Barwadih Western Forest Range. Okay. So this location was chosen carefully with the compliance of the Supreme Court guidelines. It's outside both the core and buffer zones of PTR. The area is around 150 hectares. These are the basic information. Earlier, 4 locations were considered. Palamau, Hazaribagh, Dalma and other were there, but Palamau was chosen because it already has tiger habitat in that area, and forest infrastructure is also very good if we compare it to other places. And even looking at the Rajgir Tiger Reserve, which is in Bihar, and this is the model from where they are picking up the procedures and how they are going to release animals and everything. They are actually seeing the model from the Bihar. So the process now involves preparing a DPR, which is detailed project report. This would be prepared by Palamau Tiger Reserve Deputy Director, and then this DPR will go to the NTCA, and then it will go to CZA for approval. If all goes well, then approval may take 5 to 6 months, and construction timeline was around 1.5 to 2 years.
Right. And what does the government say about how this project will end up benefiting the state?
So what forest officials told Indian Express that there is a twofold expectations. One is ecotourism and second is livelihood and income generation. The safari is expected to generate at least 200 to 300 direct jobs that includes guides, support staff or animal caretaker, maintenance workers and others in the tourism ecosystem, whoever are there. So beyond that, it's being pitched as a conservation education center, not just tourism for the sake of entertainment, but something that fosters awareness about wildlife and forest conservation. It's also a way to bring economic development to a forest rich but economically backward region, using nature as a source of income or the engine of growth, you can say.
And Shubham, considering that a fair bit of the land is being taken up by this project, are there concerns about how this might displace local communities there?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question because there are multiple concerns around the safari which are being raised by the local communities especially and some activists also. So for this, we have to understand two sides. One is the perspective of forest department and other is that of the tribal communities living in those areas. So this tension honestly isn't new. I mean, we have to understand that it's a part of much longer history of land and resources disputes between these two, forest department and tribal communities. So from the forest department side, what officials are saying, they say that the land selected for the tiger safari falls entirely within the fringe area of the PTR, Palamau Tiger Reserve, and is already classified as forest land. So when questions are raised about displacement or acquisition of village or if they are going to acquire any village land, so their response was clearly no displacement, no village land is being taken over. But on the other hand, the local communities, the Adivasi community have raised serious concerns. For instance, residents of Mahuatar village. Okay, so villagers here are saying that they are claiming that earlier this project was coming in their traditional territory and they raised this issue this year only. And what happened this year in April or March, they held a protest against the forest department because the forest department was releasing nearly 1,000 nilgais into the vicinity of the village. And during their demonstrations, villagers also raised this objection that the tiger safari should here come or not, or they should be involved in this decision-making process. So in response to this protest also, forest official reportedly reduced the proposed tiger safari zone, stating it would not much impact Mahuatar. So yes, according to the forest administration, saving tigers, spreading awareness about wildlife conservation and entertainment are important. But at the same time, we must respect the right of the forest dwelling communities who have lived there for generations because this is their ancestral land.
Okay, so now that the tiger safari zone has been scaled down, have the tensions between the forest department and the local communities eased a bit?
So the tensions haven't gone away. I mean, this area is now falling under the Pituagarh forest area, and Pituagarh is also a village. So now the villagers of Pituagarh are now planning a mini council or a meeting on June 7, where they will discuss about the safari and the planning. So this meeting is basically a part of their some festival which is called Jetti Jatra. After Jetti Jatra, it's a tribal march. After march, they will hold this meeting and they will decide that what they have to demand to the forest officials. Now their argument is fundamental. They say that how can the forest department claim this land when we have been living here long before the forest laws existed? Since this area comes under Schedule 5 of the Constitution, which was for the protection of the tribal rights, where the PESA Act, Panchayat's extension to scheduled areas in 1996, it came and it applies in those Schedule 5 areas. So under PESA Act, the Gram Sabha has that power, autonomous power, to give consent to the projects. Those are coming to the tribal areas. So they are saying this hasn't happened yet, and that's the core of their opposition. And I would just narrate what the villagers of Latehar, what they told me. So he spoke about his childhood when their community would gather to celebrate festivals, or they are gathering in their place called Akhra in Jharkhand. Okay, so it's a space where people pray, dance and come together, enjoy. So what he said is that back then when he was in his childhood, he said that the forest department rarely interfered at that time. They interfered, but it was very minimum. So from morning till late evening, the Akhra belonged to the Adivasis, but once they returned home, it became the animals' domain. Tigers, cheetahs and other wildlife would come there and roam freely. So he actually said this, and he misses those days when humans and animals shared the land in quite understanding before the administration began to impose laws or encroaching on their way of life. So yes, according to the forest administration, saving tigers, spreading awareness about wildlife conservation and entertainment are important, but at the same time we must respect the right of the forest dwelling communities who have lived there for generations, because this is their ancestral land.
But Shubham, aren't tiger safaris set up in other parts of the country as well? Like Jim Corbett, for example? Do they face similar concerns?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yes, tiger safaris do exist in other parts of India, and they have definitely seen similar concerns. Across India, if you'll see, there are similar concerns, especially when it comes to forest rights and the role of local communities. For example, even in Jim Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand, there was a major controversy. The forest department started building a tiger safari in the specific forest range without proper environmental clearances. Then the Supreme Court had to step in and stop the project, saying that safaris shouldn't disturb core forest areas and should only be developed on degraded land or buffer areas or the remaining areas. Also, there was another concern of one Gujars. These are the nomadic tribal community. So they were living in and around Jim Corbett. Okay, so they have been facing pressure of eviction for years. So yes, this is not just a Jharkhand specific issue, it's across India.
And in the end, we talk about Trinamool Congress MP Mahua Moitra, who has married Supreme Court lawyer Pinaki Misra, a former Biju Janata Dal MP from Odisha. The Indian Express's Ravik Bhattacharya reported that Moitra confirmed the news to the Indian Express over the phone from Germany, where she got married in a low-key ceremony on 30th of May. The two-term MP from Krishnanagar had a successful career as a banker with JP Morgan's London and New York operations before she quit her cushy job to return to the country and join politics. She was earlier married to Danish financier Lars Brorson, but they later got divorced. Pinaki Misra, Moitra's now husband, is a veteran politician from Odisha who became Congress's MP from Puri in 1996. Ravik reports that he later joined Naveen Patnaik's BJD and won Puri again in 2009 and 2014 elections, becoming the party's face in Delhi. Misra, who has a son and a daughter from a previous marriage, also came under fire during the Cash for Query scandal, with the BJP demanding his expulsion from the BJD, citing Hiranandani's affidavit to the Lok Sabha Ethics Committee. Misra dismissed the allegations as false and warned of legal action against BJP. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank Bhargava and me, Niharika Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.